Welcome to OOTO TV, the out-of-the-office investigation from the past into the future of health. This time we're discussing anti-parasitic repurposed drugs and herbs, benefits for overall health as antiviral and anti-cancer.
I'm Nightingale.
And I'm Pastor.
And in this OTTV investigation, we are about to go on a really fascinating journey. We're going to connect the dots between ancient remedies, things our ancestors discovered thousands of years ago, and the cutting-edge science happening in labs right now. We're talking about compounds from leaves, bark, roots, the original pharmacy, really. And Pastor, what's incredible is that modern science is taking a second look and finding that these ancient molecules might hold the keys to fighting some of today's most challenging diseases. It's truly a story of rediscovery, isn't it?
It absolutely is, Nightingale. So here's how we're going to map out our investigation today. We're starting with nature's ancient arsenal to get a sense of the sheer history and scale we're dealing with. Then we'll get a little more specific and look at the alkaloids. These are the bioactive powerhouses doing all the heavy lifting. After that, things get really exciting as we explore a potential antiviral revolution, looking at how these compounds are being repurposed. Then we'll tackle the boldest idea, targeting cancer's engine. It sounds futuristic, but the science is pointing in that direction. And finally, we'll wrap it all up by looking at the future of repurposing and what this all means moving forward. Right. And Pasteur, before we get into the specifics, we have to understand just how massive this ancient arsenal really is. This isn't some niche, alternative thing. For centuries, literally 2/3 of the world's population has relied on plants as their main source of medicine. Think about that for a second. Billions of people, generation after generation, figuring out what works through trial and error. It's like this enormous global open source project, building a library of healing knowledge. And only now is modern science really starting to catalog it, validate it, and understand the chemistry behind it all. And Nightingale, the reason scientists are digging back into that library with such urgency is because we are up against a huge global health crisis. We're talking about diseases caused by these tiny protozoan parasites. You've heard the names: malaria, leishmaniasis, Chagas disease. These aren't just textbook entries. They affect hundreds of millions of people, mostly in tropical regions and developing countries. The research highlights places like Colombia, where you might see thousands of new cases of leishmaniasis every year, and over 1 million people are walking around infected with the parasite that causes Chagas. These are ongoing, devastating problems that need new answers, which is exactly why looking back to nature's pharmacy is so incredibly important. That urgency, that real human need, is the engine driving this whole field of research, Pasteur. Scientists are going back to that natural library, and they're zeroing in on a special class of compounds. Plants have spent millions of years evolving these as their own personal defense systems, and they're called alkaloids. You can think of them as nature's chemical warriors. And these molecules, these alkaloids, are at the absolute center of our story today. The story of anti-parasitic repurposed drugs and herbs, benefits for overall health as antiviral and anti-cancer. Chemical warriors is the perfect term, Nightingale. So let's just lay down the science for everyone listening. What makes an alkaloid an alkaloid? Well, they're a class of organic compounds, meaning they're found in nature, and their key feature is that they all have at least one nitrogen atom in their molecular structure. Now, that might sound like a minor chemical detail, but it's everything. That nitrogen atom changes the whole game. It gives these molecules their unique shapes and properties, which allows them to have these really powerful drug-like or pharmacological effects on us and other animals. They are, quite literally, the active ingredients that make these medicinal plants work. Exactly, and if you need one perfect example of an alkaloid changing the world, look no further than quinine. This is the poster child. It's an alkaloid that comes from the bark of the cinchona tree in South America. Back in the 19th century, scientists isolated it and it became the treatment for malaria. It's impossible to overstate the impact of this one single compound. It has saved countless millions of lives. It literally redrew maps and allowed for development in parts of the world that were previously uninhabitable because of malaria. It is the original blockbuster anti-parasitic drug, straight from nature's lab, and it proves just how powerful these compounds can be. And the amazing thing, Pasteur, is that quinine was just the tip of the iceberg. The search didn't stop there.
Scientists kept looking, and they keep finding more of these amazing molecules. Here are just two other great examples. On one hand, you have liriodennine. It's an alkaloid found in certain tropical plants, and in the lab, it has shown it can be really potent against the parasites that cause leishmaniasis. And then you have berberine. This one is found in more common plants like golden seal and barberry. And it's not just a lab curiosity. Berberine is so effective that the research shows it's been used in clinics for over 50 years to treat the skin sores caused by leishmaniasis. This proves that this isn't just history, it's living, breathing, modern medicine. You're listening to OTOT TV with research by author Paul Buell.
Okay, so this is where the story takes a really exciting turn. We have this long established history of these compounds being incredible parasite fighters. So the next logical question scientists started asking was, what else can they do? If a molecule is really good at messing with the biology of a parasite, could it also mess with other things like a virus? This is the whole idea of repurposing, and it's where our investigation blasts into the future of health. And of course, the drug ivermectin, originally an antiparasitic, brought this entire conversation to a global stage during the pandemic. It really put a spotlight on the incredible potential of antiparasitic repurposed drugs and herbs, benefits for overall health as antiviral and anti-cancer.
And Pasteur? That spotlight was fueled by some absolutely eye-popping numbers. A huge meta-analysis, which, let's just be clear for everyone, is a study of studies, where researchers pool all the data from many separate trials to get a much bigger, more reliable picture. Well, it came up with this number, an 82% improvement in protection against COVID-19 when ivermectin was used for prophylaxis, meaning as a preventative. When you see a number that high from that kind of robust analysis, you can't just dismiss it. It's a signal in the noise that says, hey, something important might be going on here.
That's absolutely right, Nightingale. And it wasn't just about prevention. The data for treating people who were already sick was also incredibly compelling. Let's just walk through this table, because these numbers tell a powerful story. A 51% improvement in mortality. I mean, let's just pause there. That's a massive potential reduction in the risk of dying. Then you see a 29% improvement against needing a ventilator, a 41% improvement in ICU admissions. That means keeping people out of the most critical care. A 34% drop in hospitalization in general. And on top of all that, a 45% improvement in viral clearance, meaning the body gets rid of the virus faster. Taken together, this isn't just one effect. It's a signal of improvement across all the most important, life-threatening outcomes. And this next point is so important. The data also showed that timing is critical. It wasn't just about if you were treated, but when. The analysis found a 62% improvement for patients who got the treatment early in their illness. But for those who were treated later, that number dropped to 42%. Now, that still shows an effect, but it's a lot smaller. And this makes perfect sense, Pasteur. With a virus, you want to hit it hard and fast right at the beginning before it has time to replicate and cause widespread damage. This finding strongly suggests that early intervention is the key to getting the best possible outcome.
But Nightingale, as amazing as the antiviral potential is, the story doesn't end there. Researchers are now looking at an even bigger, more complex target. This is the bleeding edge of this whole field, and it's the idea of targeting antiparasitic repurposed drugs and herbs benefits for overall health as antiviral and anti-cancer. The question is, could these same types of compounds actually be used to fight cancer? I know it sounds almost too good to be true, but the scientific reasoning behind it is actually incredibly clever. It is so clever, Pasteur, because it hinges on a key difference between our healthy cells and cancer cells. It's all about how they make energy. So look at this comparison. On the left, you have our normal, healthy cells. They use their mitochondria, the little power plants in our cells, to generate energy through a super efficient process. But cancer cells, on the right, are often metabolic messes. They're rewired. Many of them get hooked on a much less efficient way of making energy. And critically, their mitochondria are often damaged or dysfunctional. This broken energy system is a fundamental weakness, a unique vulnerability that we can potentially attack.
And this slide lays out exactly how that attack could work. It's a really elegant four-step process. So, first, the repurposed drug or natural compound gets inside the cancer cell. Step 2, its chemical properties make it home in on those broken, dysfunctional mitochondria, largely ignoring the healthy ones in your normal cells. Step 3, it throws a wrench in their already faulty energy production, basically pulling the plug on the cancer cell's power supply. And that leads to the final, brilliant step. The cell's self-destruct sequence, called apoptosis, gets triggered. The drug doesn't have to poison the cell, it just pushes it to commit cellular suicide. It's an incredibly targeted and smart mechanism.
So this is the big idea, the main takeaway. This isn't like a classic chemotherapy that's a bit of a sledgehammer, often damaging healthy cells along with the cancerous ones. This is more like a guided missile. It's about exploiting a fundamental weakness that is specific to cancer cells, their messed up metabolism. That's what makes the potential of targeting antiparasitic repurposed drugs and herbs benefits for overall health as antiviral and anti-cancer so revolutionary. It opens the door to therapies that could, in theory, be far more selective and have fewer side effects. It's no wonder the research community is so excited.
But, and this is a really big but, Nightingale, this is where we have to pump the brakes and be responsible investigators. All of that incredible scientific potential has unfortunately been leaped upon by some, creating claims that go way beyond the current clinical evidence. The Kaiser Family Foundation, KFF, sounds a serious alarm bell with this quote. They're pointing out a very real danger. If people hear about this potential online and decide to self-treat, they might delay or even skip treatments that are proven to work, and the consequences of that could be absolutely tragic. And that warning is based on some very hard facts. Let's be crystal clear on the contrary view here. First, the FDA has not approved ivermectin to treat cancer. Full stop. Second, a lot of what you see online are personal stories, not rigorous, controlled clinical trials, which are the only way to truly know if something works. Third, this isn't a harmless substance. Taking the wrong dose can lead to serious problems, and it can have dangerous interactions with other common medications. All of this makes the political push in some states to make it easier to get without a doctor's guidance a really complex and potentially risky situation from a public health standpoint.
And this brings up the whole messy issue of misinformation, Pastor. This KFF poll is a perfect example of how a scientific debate can get tangled up with politics. When you look at who believed ivermectin was effective for COVID-19, you see this massive split along party lines. It shows just how fast a certain narrative can take root and spread, even when the scientific picture is still developing or unclear. It makes it incredibly difficult for doctors and scientists to communicate effectively when people are living in completely different information bubbles. You're listening to OOTTO TV with research by author Paul Bulow.
And this is why it's so crucial to bring these two sides together. The scientific promise is exciting, yes, but the dangers of jumping to conclusions are very real. The only responsible way forward is to see this as part of a much bigger picture. As this slide says, it is never about one single thing. Targeting antiparasitic repurposed drugs and herbs benefits for overall health as antiviral and anti-cancer requires you to have a health plan, diet, and daily eating and sleep routine and process to provide the desired gut microbiota result for health. It's about a holistic strategy, integrating all the tools we have, conventional, novel, diet, lifestyle, all of it, under the guidance of a doctor who can see your complete health picture.
That really brings our entire investigation full circle, Nightingale. We've gone from ancient remedies found in tree bark to the cutting-edge science of targeting cancer cell metabolism, and we've also navigated the tricky waters of public perception and misinformation. It's clear that the path forward isn't just about finding the next wonder drug. It's about having the scientific curiosity to look in unexpected places, but also the rigorous discipline to test those discoveries properly and communicate about them responsibly. That's the real future of repurposing.
That's perfectly put, Pasteur. So let's just nail down these key takeaways for everyone. Number one, nature is this incredible library of medicine, and we've barely read the first chapter. There's so much more to find. Number two, repurposing old drugs for new uses is a brilliant strategy. It can be faster, cheaper, and safer than starting from scratch. Number three, the science behind how these compounds could work against viruses and cancer is solid and definitely deserves more research. But, and this is the crucial part, number four, all that excitement has to be balanced with serious, high-quality clinical trials in humans. And finally, number five, we all have to be smart consumers of information because misinformation isn't just wrong, it can be dangerous.
And so, we'll leave you with this final, thought-provoking question. We are standing in front of two massive libraries. One is nature's arsenal, filled with compounds perfected over millions of years. The other is our own pharmaceutical library, filled with thousands of drugs that we've already proven are safe. The question that should excite every single one of us is, what other secrets, what other life-saving cures are just sitting on the shelf, waiting for a curious mind to come along and find a new purpose for them? Thanks for joining us on this investigation for OTT TV.